All
All
right.
right.
All right. Good afternoon. Happy Thursday. All right. We're trying something new, guys, with a new streaming platform. So I just want to make sure that it's right and everything is going well. It appears to. It appears to be going. All right. All right. Good afternoon, Miss Obiama.
Well, good afternoon, Miss Leah.
Welcome everyone to the Impact Podcast. We won't keep you guys along today, but I have to say that I struggled. I struggled with really thinking about a topic for today. Usually it's all kinds of things we can speak about. However, what I know that I've been seeing, hearing, feeling is that there's a lot of heaviness right now across education, across many industries, in many households, in many people's lives, and I definitely did not want us to come on and act like we could just bypass it and speak about all the cute, fuzzy, fun things that we could speak about. I wanted to be able to be in the moment and recognize that people are struggling right now. And of course, as a lot of times as mothers and females, we love to be able to have a resolution, have an answer, get past it. So, not that we can change everything in one day. However, we definitely can speak to it and we could brainstorm and come together because with so many powerful people. So, the one thing I was thinking about is the power of partnerships and collaboration. And I'm wondering, when I say this week, I know personally I've spoken to many different people who work for the education system, not necessarily early childhood education. I've spoken with early childhood education professionals, teachers, non teachers, leaders, business leaders, people in general, and the story is the same. It's the same thing in regards to just how difficult it is to be in education right now specifically, and we're literally not just talking about adults. We have teachers who are having children and families who are having a rough time right now, just managing their lives at home, mental health, things like that. So it made me wonder, who can we partner with, whether it is someone who may have the answer or something or a service, or is it an organization? And I was really wondering if it is not for us in early childhood education. What if it is not, the answer is not in early childhood education? What kind of partnerships could we have that could possibly bring us some relief? Yeah, so that's what I was thinking about. What's your thoughts on that?
So I very much like yourself have had many conversations this week with people all around ECE, not in ECE, outside of ECE, and what's really interesting, especially in all of the people who are outside of ECE, is that this work is the same, that the issues are the same,
Exactly.
that people are hurting across the globe.
Hmm.
And so some of the conversations I had an opportunity last week to interview Dr. Anita Phillips, who is a trauma therapist and life coach. And so she's working with people in clinical spaces, corporate spaces, community spaces, church spaces. And at the end of the day, my question to her was, how can we as leaders, or what do we as leaders, need to do? And one of the answers was, which speaks to your question, Aaliyah, is, kind of where do we start at and where are the answers? And the answers are first and foremost within,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Within. So as leaders, as CEOs, as directors, we must first do the work to become a healthier, better us,
Mhm.
which will allow us to be free to partner with and create. Because when you are free, it allows for you to create a safe space
Mhm.
for your employees. And I remember specifically early on, I was 18, 19, and I worked for Keystone Mercy Health Plan, which is the Sisters of Mercy, which is a Catholic organization. And I was having a conversation with someone earlier who works for the city, nowhere near in our space. And the conversation was around, in my experience in all of my years, I've always had the very best experiences with Catholic organizations, because they get the importance of creating space,
Mhm.
regardless of what your religious belief is, regardless of what your ethnicity is. One of the things that they did, and this was like 1999, Leah, we had a prayer room.
Mhm.
We had a prayer room, and it was open as long as the building was open, and anybody could access this prayer room at any time. And I so treasured and valued that, because whether I was in there or somebody else was in there with their cloth because they needed to kneel and pray, or whatever, but it was such a sacred space.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
and so I think that is definitely a step in the direction, just creating a room. And so whether you go to that room to pray or just to be still and be quiet.
Mhm.
So you wasn't allowed to eat in that room because we had a cafeteria, but that was definitely a room of solitude.
Wow.
you
Wow.
know and I just think that one of the things is specifically for us in ECE, because our teachers absolutely are dealing with and doing a lot,
Yes.
in addition to the family. So I think the first thing is, help how do we, the leader, win within,
Mhm. Mhm.
and then how do we help those that we serve win within,
Right. Absolutely.
right?
You made a good point, especially with it made me think about a conversation just the other day. I have an employee who a lot of times comes in my office during their break time because that's like the only quiet space, right? So
Hmm.
now that I think about it, we have a staff lounge. And it's big enough for a number of people to be in there. We have a sofa and we have all of that. But I come to find out that it's a couple of staff who they try to find the most quiet space and there aren't many. So I said to her, I said, "Oh my goodness. So what about so we have a full-size gym. Most people don't go in the gym." And I hope she doesn't get me for saying this because she was like, "Don't tell the quiet space." But I said, "What about if we set up a space where it's a quiet zone?" It's like if you enter into this space, it has to remain quiet. So that's a really good point
Hmm.
because for me, I would think, during that time you want to be social. But if you've had a heightened day and depending on how your morning went, I need 30 minutes of quiet time.
Yes.
And that
Yes.
and that could be the very thing that allowed you to maintain your mental health for the rest of the day because we
Yep.
don't know what someone came into work with. We don't know what took place this morning, and that goes for our children as well. I know I
Absolutely.
saw some feedback in a group about just breakfast time and drop off, and not every setting allows for uh, children to get meals at all times. And I know for us, one thing I always believed in was it doesn't matter what time they arrive, they can eat something because, again, we don't know what happened that morning. I know I used to be the late parent. So why would my child have to? I did. And it wasn't my child's fault. And now they miss breakfast. And, so but I say all that to say I am understanding that there are some settings that don't have a lot of people who can cater to that. But it just made me think about we don't know what happened last night in the morning before this person got here and they tried to put a smile on their face or they're trying to get through. And we make those statements a lot of times of when you get here, leave your problems at the door. You have to come in, put a smile on your face. But the reality is that we do need to, when we talk about the whole child, we also have to talk about the whole person, which includes the leader and the teachers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what else? It's also about so much of what we do with children is so um,
Oh, absolutely. Oh my God.
right. How do we slow that down in this current space with all of the different things going on so that there can be some mindfulness?
Mindfulness.
Right.
Mindfulness. That's
So
good.
so I guess, initially I said the answers are not in ECE, and I still believe in terms of the framework, in terms of having somebody come in,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like this isn't a band-aid situation. This has to be a programmatic, sustainable model and practice
Mm-hmm.
of mindfulness and intentionality, vulnerability, safety that supersedes this moment in time and really lends the opportunity for people to come to work and be their authentic selves and breathe
Yes.
without repercussion.
Yes. Agreed. Absolutely.
Right. So it's a matter of teaching leaders how to do that so
Mm-hmm.
that they can then do it for the people that they serve. And I don't know that there's anybody outside of myself that even would know how to teach someone else how to do that, that is currently in the ECE space, because the ECE space, the way that we know it, is so data driven and money driven. Like, I'm gonna just say what it
Mm-hmm.
is. It
Mm-hmm.
is what it is. It's data driven and it's money driven, and depending on who gets the money, that determines the outcome and who gets served. And it's so political and it's so muddy.
Right.
It's so muddy. So that's why I'm saying, with the current framework, no. So it is going to take people that understand this and people that's outside of this, who understands trauma, who understands mindfulness, who understands the importance of safe space, who also cares more about treating people like people
Mm-hmm.
than the data and the number crunching and the reporting. That has its place.
Mm-hmm.
I understand
Absolutely.
that, and I'm not taking away from that. But can we go back to just treating people like people?
Absolutely. Right. Is that not what we teach? Right. We
That's
teach
what we
about,
teach, but
that's
that's
what we
not what's
teach.
practiced.
Right. Meet them where they are.
Yeah,
Uh,
if we could be honest, that's not what's practiced, because
right.
it gets lost in all of the reporting.
Yes. And it's so interesting because even when you mentioned data initially, I was like, well, what does the data say right now? The data says that people are overwhelmed, they're stressed out, even in the inability or the difficulty we're having with staffing, retaining staff, recruiting staff. I posted, if anyone follows me on social media, I posted about the salary increase that was mentioned for teachers next school year. And, I was looking at it and I was like, I don't think that's the answer. I really don't think that's the answer. For those who may need a financial boost, yes, but it has to be a lot deeper. So the
Hmm.
data has to show exactly that, is that, whether it's, I know attendance for us is up and down. The data shows that. I know reasons why staff may call out. Any data that we pull, including right children, right, children behaviors, we realized the other day, my administrative assistant literally said, that's a little off topic, but it was like, in regards to the number of IEP children with IEPs who are inquiring to come in, right, I'm just speaking about the data, this is what it's showing. So but even in that, it made me say, when recruiting or thinking about preparing our staff based on the environment and based on the trajectory of where the demand is in our program, we need to be able to partner with, I don't know, hospitals, mental health programs, um, other professionals that are not directly related to early childhood education, even businesses or consultants who could help us create positive work environments. What if we just
Yeah.
focused on how can we have a work environment that is safe for employees to come to, that they feel like they are welcome, that they feel like their culture is represented and respected. Um, Things that have nothing to do with necessarily teaching children directly, if that makes sense. I know we have a lot of professional development, we have a lot of credentials, and all of those things focus on the education of teaching children, but not necessarily, like you said, how to treat people or how to create an environment that is sustainable for everyone to thrive so that we could get everyone's best selves, right? So, yeah, I definitely think whether we look at the data or not, I feel like the data is telling us that we need to change what it is that we're doing. The system is broken. The system is
Oh
broken.
yeah, for sure. Everything is pointing that way. And when you look at the IEPs and a number of the IEPs, is rooted rooted in trauma, right? It's rooted in trauma, and I'm saying that from the, and let me kind of just step back and say this: it's unfortunate that there is so many lacks in the system that is rooted in money,
Hmm.
because when so we're in Philadelphia, and when you cross the street and you go into Lower Marion, it's a different framework in terms of support. The students still have IEPs, but each student is assigned a team.
Mm.
There's no waiting list for services.
Wow.
Okay.
Hmm.
And so, you know, being able to, I have to tell you, being able to have my sons a part of that educational system, and to be able to compare the two, has changed the way that I see teachers, the way that I see education, the way that I see support. Because in the district where there is an abundance of funding and resources, the whole family is supported.
Yeah. Mm.
The whole family is supported, but the teachers are supported as well, because there are professional development days, right? That's not on a holiday.
Mm.
That is a legit staff professional development day where they're being nurtured, where they're being, cared for, where they're getting what they need. And then on top of that, the district has done a phenomenal job in bringing in experts
Hmm.
to have to do they have all type of workshops and stuff at night for parents, whether it is in person or online. So when we talk about how can we partner with outside, it has to be, how can we include this in the budget so
Hmm.
that it can happen, and who will support it. And a lot of times it's really just a conversation, because a lot of organizations will do pro bono work,
Yes. It's the
you know
conversation.
a lot of, so it's definitely a conversation, and it's just about really opening yourself up to be vulnerable enough to ask for help, because help is available.
Oh my good. When I say that very thing, I experienced last week opportunity in an accountability group that I'm in. I had the opportunity to not just but everyone ask for what you need in the community. Ask for what you need, right? And it was like, wait, ask for what I need. Well, what do I? It's funny, right? Because we always say, I need help. But if you ask me what I need, it's like, wait. So I asked a room full of entrepreneurs. We're talking about 400 people on this call. And I really wanted other entrepreneurs who could help speak to children as entrepreneurs and let them see what an entrepreneur looks like, their journey, and the response was amazing. And the conversations that I've been having with these business owners around um, really just it started with, are you available to speak to our summer camp students, like, because we're going to have an entrepreneurial summer camp, can you speak to them? And it's like, absolutely. Some, no, none of them are from Philadelphia, so those close enough will drive in, but they're like, what else can we do? And we started the conversation, started bringing up other ideas in regards to, wait a minute, this is too big to just have a conversation with summer campers. This conversation needs to be for their parents and their families and the community. So we're literally trying to figure out, how can we make this bigger so that we can do exactly what we say we do, which is impact the community, all from a question: would you be willing to help? And there's so many people who are, none of these people are in early childhood education. They are not, the fields are totally different, but just asking the question, people are ready, willing, and like, they're like, I would love to. What can I do? So we have a lot of things that we're working on to be non-traditional, to be able to connect with children and fit. Because the truth of the matter is, some of these things, right? And we've had other conversations where, even speaking to an adult, for some, we are speaking to the child within that adult. They may not have been able to live out this dream, or need some self-confidence boosting. It's so many things that, in the services that we provide, it is not just for children, which is why I believe in the Head Start model, which is comprehensive, and it is supporting not just the child, but it is supporting the family, so that we can ultimately impact the community. Because when that child goes home with everything that we may have instilled in them, they have to go home to a family who has the resources and the support to also be self-sufficient. So it is, it's so important. And I think, if we start thinking about and identifying what we need for ourselves as leaders, business owners, for our staff, for our children, for our families, then we can start reaching out and asking for the help that we need. And then we all win. We all.
Yeah. So also, what I hear you saying is that, number one, we have to get over ourselves. That's number one. We have to get over ourselves. But in so doing that, we can create a ecosystem,
Mm-hmm.
right? We can create an ecosystem that is self-sustaining,
Mm-hmm.
because when there is no agenda
Right.
and everyone wants to see the other person win,
Yes.
that's where the real impact lies,
Absolutely.
right? So
Absolutely.
it's now about getting connected with purpose partners.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah, purpose partners
Mm-hmm.
to create what we need,
Yeah,
because it's beyond, this conversation is beyond the work that we do. If we're talking about making the impact that's required, it needs to impact, across all lines, all communities, all ethnicities, all. It needs to be
absolutely.
a global, mindset, but for the purpose of right now, even at a legislative perspective, in the way the dollars, come down, while traditionally the funding has been very much social emotional support for the children, the staff needs social emotional support, and that's something that the data is showing across the globe,
Absolutely.
and outside of ECE, because a lot of corporate people are now starting to say, okay, we need to provide some mental health support. And
Absolutely.
because, yeah,
Absolutely.
COVID just shot the light on it. It
Yep.
was always needed.
Mm-hmm. And
And we saw that.
preventative.
Yeah,
Preventative. The
we
same way we
yeah,
have, regular doctor visits and annual visits and things like that to be preventative. We need these measures in place as well, right? I don't want, there's some staff, I'm like, wait a minute, we need to take a break. You need a break, or
Right.
schedule every day. It doesn't have to be that you are sick, and it doesn't have to be that your child is sick, or it really could be that you need a mental health day. So
Hmm.
time off is called paid time off. You need the time off. Spring break is coming up, and I have a number of staff. They are looking forward to it. What my concern has been was for the infant toddler teachers who they don't have the same kind of breaks that preschool has. Um,
Hmm.
so I'm trying to figure out ways that we could balance that. Where some staff they take off, right? If because some staff do continue to work. So if some, if there was a way that we could cover these infant toddler teachers so that they have, I don't, whether it's an extra hour lunch or a half a day or
But
a
you
four
know
day
what?
work week.
It has to be equitable though, and that's the problem
Absolutely.
in of itself, because it's not an equitable model to say, well, you're not really teaching, so you don't deserve the same access. You don't deserve this. You know, there's so many things that divide us based on the age group that we serve, which
Yep.
is horrible because it's the same work.
The same work.
It's the
Absolutely.
same work, the same nurture, the same attention and intention that it takes to prepare and educate that preschooler, that kindergartner, that whatever. The infant and toddler requires the exact same energy.
Yep.
You know, so to your point though, it has to be an equitable model where the infant and toddler teachers also get so that's the real, that has to be the shift. So you as an employer and other employers have to see the value, right? To the point that you're making, they have to be able to see that my infant and toddler teachers need the exact same benefits and access that my preschoolers do. And what I love that you did, and you can really speak to this, because what I love that you did, you decided to bridge some of that by saying my preschool staff is supported by all of these outside programs, but my
Yep.
infant and toddler staff not so much.
Right.
So I'm going to redistribute, redirect, so that I can make sure they have what they need. So for those that's listening, can you speak to that? How did you get there? And so we started with that what, over the summer, August, maybe
Yeah.
September,
Yep. Yep.
right? So I think, because I'm sure other people that's listening to us is like, okay, now how will that work? So we're talking about it, but let's tell them how did that work? How did you get there?
So I know that we have a couple of different funding streams and funders, right? And they have specific requirements, but they also have specific benefits, if you will, different supports. It could be education specialists, it could be like the mental health consultants, and all of these technical assistant type positions, as well as professional development. So they have professional development days, some half days, whereas though it's set aside for specific professional development topics. And then there were some continuous quality improvement programs because we're always on our CQI. We have a couple of programs that we were a part of, and they offered different things. And what I started seeing was, again, I have, so if it was my city funded pre-K, they received XYZ. And if I had my federal funded program, then they received these benefits ABC. But I didn't want my program, we work really hard to make sure it's not fragmented. So because we have Head Start classrooms, and for those of you who don't know, Head Start has a home visit model where, teachers right now, not so much with COVID, but teachers go to families' homes so that way they're on their territory. It doesn't feel like, you are in this authority position. But because I believe in it so much, we're not only going to do it for our Head Start, we're going to do it for all of our preschool. That's just, so we're working really hard at leveling that playing field. But Now, when we're advised that we have opportunities, I ask, can my other teachers, like, can my staff be a part of it? Can they participate? Especially if it's a Zoom and they're logging in or able to go to a training, can I just have five more staff people? Right? Because it improves the program. Not we are not focused on one classroom because every child, every family deserves this opportunity. So that was one thing we did. The other thing I realized was that we had a lot of the same or the repetitive professional development topics. And I noticed that it was a lot more effective for staff when we had conversations or when we focused on this topic that could benefit the whole person. So, we started talking about opportunities where we could do peer learning circles. Not only could we focus on something like, right, it might have been mental health activities, or it may have been around an article, or it may have been watch this podcast and we'll come back and we'll talk about it. It also allowed for people to be able to, take off that teacher hat for a moment and be a person and think and problem solve and connect their thoughts, emotions, feelings. Because how often do we ask, well, how are you feeling? Versus, is your lesson plan completed? Did you complete the training? How many PD hours do you have? Right. It's like, what's your thoughts about this? Right. Open-ended questions that we're supposed to ask children. Right. What are you thinking? So that was the purpose, in addition to being able to allow these teachers who are sometimes in their silo classroom, or we have floors. So the second floor, they're kind of siloed separate from the others. So it was also an opportunity to have conversations across rooms or across age groups. So the peer learning circle, that whole idea was about, we'll have opportunities to partner together, relationship building, communication skills, problem solving skills, and just a moment to be a person. So, that's how that kind of came about. So now, of course, we meet our annual professional development, but we also have moments where we have social moments where, we'll have our end of the year party. What's our theme? We'll do stuff like that. We celebrate one another. Thank you so much for, when you saw that I needed help the other day and you helped me. We express gratitude to one another, and that trickles down, right? It's not just administration shouting out other people, but it's teachers shouting out teachers, because we want to be a supportive environment. So the goal has really been to, really address this. Let's reach the people, the teachers, because they are no good teaching children or coming in and sharing from an empty cup. So we have to make sure, so we're just trying to be really creative about, how we continue to challenge our staff as people, or just not challenge them in that way, but allow them to recognize that they are important, and that we want them to be able to dig deep and express their thoughts, and kind of collaborate with one another so that they can just be a better person and be who they want to be.
Absolutely. So, what I hear you saying, and this is going to be really important for those who are still like, I need to see that. You definitely do want to come and see. I know at some point, and we've talked about this, that you will, have a camera crew or whatever, because people really do need to be able to see how this works. And you did not, this hasn't been something that took you overnight to create. You've been working at it, but I want to say this, um, even though it may sound like it's easy, it's not easy, and you have had to do your own level of work
Oh, yes.
to, create this space for your staff, and to be able to look from the outside and say, okay, what is the consistency in the gaps?
Absolutely.
you
Yep.
know and so a few things, like so many things I heard you say, so many things that I know that you do and I see that you do, that other programs could glean from, because in terms of creating this safe space and in terms of being creative, you have really tapped into what works and what's not working. And I think what I've observed from the outside in is listening.
Yes.
Like you really, really listen, even so much with your open door policy,
Yes.
just and because that in itself says to the staff, I'm here for you.
Yes.
Even though I'm doing what I need to do, a closed door is a different message than an open door.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so because of the way that you've led and you continue to lead in your own professional, personal, business development that you have committed to making, it shows in how you lead and it shows in how your staff follows.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's important because like we can talk, but this isn't theory. This isn't a book. This is hands on deck, feet to the ground. We're in this kind of constantly shaping it. We like you are listening and doing. You are listening and making the changes. You're not just listening and not hearing and not making changes and not having these round tables and these discussions and not caring.
Right.
So your staff feel heard.
Yes.
They feel supported. They know that you see them.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the things that is missing in many programs. A lot of times, the executive director, the owner, or the director, for whatever reason, right, wrong, or indifferent, is so busy either being in the classroom because
Mm-hmm.
they have because they don't have enough staff,
Yep.
or just not being accessible
Mm-hmm.
because they're doing other things
Mm-hmm. And our
and
staff
have
say,
allowed,
yeah,
yeah, and have allowed their program to be, what it is. And so you cannot just put money on it. While money answer a whole lot of things, when it comes to the social emotional part of it, you got to show up.
absolutely. Absolutely. And
You
you're
got
right.
to
That
show up.
support system, that support system in any setting, right? And so I'm
Mhm.
glad you bring that up too, because if we step outside of who we are as in business and we just think about personally, even in our homes or wherever we are as an individual, it's that support, right? We learned from day one in learning about early childhood education that the nurturing, right? Nurturing is really the foundation. We need that to thrive. So to come into a space where you don't feel supported, how far can you go? How much are you willing to give if you don't feel like you are heard, understood, supported? Um, and we're talking about people. We're not talking about, right? It's not machinery. It's not a factory, right? And they used to call it kind of like this, baby factory. That is not what this is. We are a space full of people, and we surely can't jump over the staff and only be concerned about the children, right? It really is that ripple effect, actually, right? So I'm starting as the vessel. I'm here, as the owner or the leader, and then I have to make sure I'm pouring into my teachers and staff so that they can pour into the children. And then we need to pour into the families as well. And without that, it can't stop with me, because then I can't expect for my teachers to create this magic, or my staff. I say staff because all of us together make this thing work. And we all come together, and we are not rigid at all, right? It's like, okay, this is the framework. We have to do these things. We have to be compliant. But if that isn't working, or if it doesn't make sense, we are not going to keep doing it just because, right? We are very innovative, and we constantly rethink, is this working? What could we do better? And I, a lot of times, can't make that decision from my office. I have to communicate with the staff when I do my walkthroughs. I made posts about that. I'm feeling and hearing what's going on, and checking in if I know something occurred in the life of one of my staff. I have to follow up about that. How How's your child? How's your family member? Because that is important. That's important. Um, and you mentioned earlier, that's an investment that I've made as a leader, is I go outside of early childhood education to learn how to be a better business owner or how to be a better leader. From many different spaces that I find to be safe, and that pours into me. So I think about what are those things that could make me better, that will ultimately make this business better, and it is not all within the education system. It's not, right. I've we spoke of Goldman Sachs. We both were a part of 10,000 small businesses. We learned so much about marketing. I never really had to market before. It was like family referrals, but we just learn so much, and those are the investments a lot of times that I make outside of the industry so that I can bring it back and really push the envelope, because children are constantly changing, people are constantly changing, we're changing. So yeah, and that's why, again, I believe we have to go to those places that give us what we need outside of what the norm is.
Hmm.
I've always been like a cage shaker. Like I'm like, no, why do we have to do that? Why do we have to do that? But I just believe that, right, the norm, if everybody does it and it's not working or there's a gap, right? Let's figure out what else we can do, and it doesn't have to be what everyone else is doing, right? I'm always communicating with other business owners, other early childhood education leaders, like, what are you guys doing that's working for you? And speaking about partnerships, I also want to kind of address, you can say we are in competition, if you will, but we're all for the children, the families, and the community. I can partner with the other programs in my community. We can have events together. We can utilize a service, a mental health service, or a hospital, or whatever the case may be. We could come together and think about how we could benefit our community. That's a partnership in itself. We can bring our staff together, our families, not necessarily the children, but activities. We could have that shared resource, if you will. So it's so many different ways we can partner within and outside of the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we have a few minutes left. So, what I would like for us to do, if that's all right with you, is give people some practical things that they can do. Because, again, thinking about those that are listening, that's like, okay, what should I do? Where do I begin? Where do I start at? Right. So, number one, I would say take inventory. That's number one. Take stock in terms of what's your why,
Hmm.
because everything begins and ends with your why. So, number one, what's your why? And then start really getting clear about the program and the impact that you want to have that supersedes money.
Absolutely.
That supersedes money. So that's number two. And then number three, reach out
Yes.
and start asking for help and start asking your staff and the families what is it that they need, because it's definitely not a one size fit all approach. What works for Aaliyah may not work for your program. Her program is very, very diverse,
Hmm.
right? Your program may not be. So we're not saying that what she does is a kind of blanket, but what we're saying is that there is a framework that's working. So
Yes.
you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You may just need to take elements of what's working for her and say, okay, how can I incorporate that into my program? Or how can I at least learn from that, glean from that, to see how I can then make it my own?
Absolutely.
You
Agree.
know, but whoever this is for, you are worthy of the investment.
Yes.
And I need to say that you are worthy of the investment. Too oftentimes we struggle and we suffer in silence because of pride. And you cannot be in this work leading with ego, because
Right.
ego has no place in this work. If it's not about the children and the families, then maybe this is not the space, you know, that you want to continue to reside in, because at some point the money is going to always be what it is,
Yes.
but we only get moments to impact children
Yeah.
and families and communities and teachers. And one of the things that we know that the data absolutely do tell us, when people grow up and they make it, and they make it big, and they're asked, you know, who was instrumental in your childhood, it's always a teacher. It's
Always.
always a teacher. And it's not many teachers, it's always one
Yep.
teacher that was impactful. And so, from an impact perspective, we need to create more teachers so that people won't just have the one teacher throughout their whole K to 12th grade experience. They need to be able to say, my teacher from kindergarten, my teachers,
Yeah.
you know, from preschool. Like, I remember, I went to Get Set. I remember my
Me
preschool
too.
teachers. You know, I don't remember my kindergarten teacher. I remember my second grade teacher. You know, I remember my eighth grade teacher, and I remember my 12th grade teacher. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Mm-hmm.
But it was because they cared
Yep.
enough
Yep.
to check on me and check me.
Yep. They-
They checked on me and they checked me.
As needed too.
And yeah, and that's why I remember them, right? And so that's what we have to do. That's a great place to start. And you know, Aaliyah is a great resource. This is why we're here.
Yeah.
So the first thing is to reach out, get on her calendar, and figure out how you can connect. Maybe you need to come and shadow, or set up a tour, or tour, or whatever that, you know, looks like. And then on the mental health support side of things, I'm a resource. I can
Absolutely.
help you. You are not alone. So don't suffer in silence, and don't talk yourself out of a great opportunity to be better. Because that's the other thing. We can get in our head and, oh, I
Mhm.
can't afford that. Oh, it's too much. And we start talking ourselves out of it. And I'm not even going, I'm a
You know
pause.
what I think a easy we
A
can
pause.
end it off with the easy exercise, right? It's an easy exercise. Write down 3 to 5 things that you need. Right? Don't overthink it. 3 to 5 things that you need, and send it out. Just like the I am in need of. Do you know someone or someplace who can address this need? And send it out. Send it out
Yep.
via your social media. Ask around. Send it on all your platforms, and see the response that you get. And ask your friends to share, and they could do the same. Like if we ask for what we need, we can find the resource, and then we can share it with others. So
Yes.
I'll definitely I would say start there. Start with the ask, and you have to start with what you need, so that then and then let's not forget to ask our people. Like you said, it's easy ways. Surveys. I do surveys all the time. Google survey is free. You can literally, it's really easy. You can send it out to your staff, ask them what they need, just get some insight, and then ask your families as well. And there's your answer. And they could very well need what you need. Let's talk together. They are human too, and, so let's start there, and asking what we need, and then we can frame it, and we can create this list, and we can all together um, make the ask.
You have not because you asked not.
So,
All right. Well, this has been another episode of The Impact.
it's an ask. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I will follow up. Make sure you did your homework, and I'll type this up to make sure that you guys can copy paste it, and just ask. That's it. Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you, Miss Dr. Obiama Martin. Thank you.
See you next time.